I'd like to start the presentation with just a quick introduction and take it over to Keith Boland for a live demo of Boomerang and Test Drive. Today we should consider cloud-based backup and disaster recovery. Use case of how to get there, Unitrends Boomerang. We'll give an example of an actual customer who applied Boomerang to implement cloud-based backup and disaster recovery. Then Keith will take us forward with a live demo and test drive setup. Close the session with a couple of slides that provide links to Amazon Web Services self-training modules and to various cost calculators that we've used in working with clients to set up and make their cloud costs. We'll leave plenty of time for discussion via the Q&A buttons at the end of the session. So consider a public cloud-based backup and disaster recovery solution. Well, it's no surprise that local disasters can happen, and depending on the size of your environment, you may only have one data center in which your infrastructure is contained. So implementing backup and disaster recovery in a cloud location and provide that second site for you for disaster recovery and at a much lower cost than implementing the site yourself. You can also use the public cloud site for backup and disaster recovery, even reduce some of your primary site compute and virtualization requirements. As you'll see in the demo, migrating some VMs to the cloud for backup and shutting them off locally as long as you can recover them when you need them. It reduces both VM sprawl and, frankly, the cost of those VMs locally. And clouds offer many good geolocation alternatives in different geographies and states or even countries than you may currently reside. Amazon has over 11 or 12 now physical locations around the world. Has quite a number, I think 6 or 7, and Azure has something like 17 to 19, and Google has 6 or 7 as well. So there are many choices that can apply in terms of geographies for your backup disaster recovery site. I'd like to know that we've had many of our clients and customers use for implementing a low-cost migration, backup, and disaster recovery solution for their virtual environments. Boomerang was introduced last year as a neat tool that clients and MSPs can use to migrate and back up VMware VMs to Amazon Web Services. It has the ability of remodeling those VMs into native Amazon machine images in the event that a client would like to do disaster recovery as a service. Reasonably low recovery times, especially low recovery times given the cost, and comes in at a very low license cost as well, about $240 per VM per year. At a high level, this Boomerang works. The left is your local VMware vSphere environment. The other right is Amazon Web Services public cloud. When Boomerang, you download a virtual appliance into your local vSphere environment. It's a 500 meg appliance, actually a vSphere image. It pops up a dashboard. It auto-discovers the VMs in your environment. You choose which VMs you'd like to snapshot and migrate, and those VMs, along with their configuration information, are exported to Amazon Simple Storage for lost backup. Block fundamentals at a recovery point objective of your setting are delivered to S3 for those VMs that you've chosen. Should you store them, you can restore directly out of S3 without requiring any compute resources. So you have very low cost back target for a public cloud, about cents a gigabyte per month. And if you'd like to run the VMs live, your virtual machines live, recovery site, a dashboard, Boomerang will remodel and convert using CloudFormation scripts, an Amazon tool, your virtual machines into Amazon machine images, and they'll actually run live in the Amazon public cloud. So now you have a disaster recovery as a service operation going. One technology, Boomerang, is that you can still copy back your Amazon machine images into your local vSphere environment should you choose to repopulate that environment even after you've been running live Amazon for a couple months. Very simple 1 or 2 click dashboard-based operation, as you'll see in just a minute. I'll close with one quick customer example. A government agency was exploring the possibility of disaster recovery as a service and backup for their environment. They used Boomerang to do an initial pilot of 70 VMware VMs and over 4 terabytes of data. Their objective forward, a responsive cloud solution that they could manage themselves, minimum capital and operational expenditure for that backup and recovery, create DR capability for their existing VMware infrastructure off-site, and most importantly, they needed any solution that they implemented to work with their existing local backup solution and infrastructure. In this case, they were running Symantec and Commvault. The customer rang in less than an hour. They started the automated orchestrated process of migrating VMs on a Friday evening and left the weekend. They would find that all 70 of the VMs were replicated and remodeled as native Amazon machine images in AWS. They declared the test of initial pilots a complete success, and they're now proceeding with a full rollout. At this point, I turn the screen over to Keith Boland, our Senior Director of Advanced Engineering, who will talk a little bit about Amazon Boomerang Test Drive and give a quick live demo of both the test drive and the Boomerang solution. You want to take it over?
Sure. Thanks, Roy.
We're on to you now.
Okay. First thing I want to level at everybody, when we say test drive, what do we mean? If you're our VM Boomerang website and I click on this free trial button, you see there's 2 different ways that you can evaluate the Boomerang product. The 30-day free trial, that is a featured Boomerang product that will run for 30 days. And with this, you can do as many applications, as many deployments as you want, but you need to have your own Amazon account. So you either need to already have an AWS account or need to have permission in your business to credit card number and Amazon account. Now, you start out on a free tier, so it won't cost you a lot of money, but I realize that a number of you work in companies where to get an AWS account, you need to a 10-page form and get a security clearance and wait for 6 months. So just anxious to try out this public cloud stuff. So we have this other way you can evaluate Boomerang, which is what we're going to talk about today. This is called the 7-day test drive. If you click here, you will be able to download an OVA, which you can deploy in a VMware environment. and this has embedded within it, it's a restricted version of Boomerang, and it has Unitrends' cloud AWS account in it. You don't have to enter any credit card or anything. This will rate and spin up your VMs on our nickel, so it won't be anything. But it is a bit restricted version of the product in that you won't be able to actually log into Amazon and see your instances running. Good thing that the test drive will give you, again, if you're not able to get your own Amazon account, this can validate, if you want to will my VMs in the public cloud, you know, we're remodeling them into native AWS components, work, will come up and be able to function in the cloud. This test drive will allow you to answer that question, and that's what we want to demo today. So when you download that, you deploy it in your local vCenter environment. You do have to deploy it on a vCenter. It won't this will deploy directly on an ESX host, but for most of you have a vCenter installed. So once you deploy it, it'll either a DHCP IP address, or we have a knowledge base article on our support center that how to configure it. Don't have DHCP. The thing you do when you deploy it is it's going to come in, ask you to create a what we call credentials profile. So this is what a credentials profile looks like. You give it a name, your password, and host name of your environment. We do that because we need to get an inventory of all your VMs on the vCenter, and we take snapshots of them and use those snapshots to replicate them up to the cloud. This part, this AWS credentials, this is pre-filled in for you. So this change this, but good because you're not paying for it, right? So that's Unitrends' AWS account. So you create that vCenter. The dashboard is oriented a concept called protection groups. A protection group is a group of virtual machines that you want to snapshot and replicate together. For example, if you had a database server and an application server that ran as a pair, you could put them in the same protection group, snapshot them together, replicate them together, and then I could specify the boot ordering when I wanted to deploy them. So walk through what that looks like. I'm going to choose my credential profile and call this Test Drive Protection Group. I can specify some settings here. I can say how long I want to keep the backups. Don't 7 days because the test drive only lasts 7 days. And at the end of 7 days, we are going to securely delete your cloud instances, so you don't have to worry about the data persisting up in the cloud. It will be gone after 7 days. But again, this is a good validate. Are your virtual machines going to come up and run in the cloud? The backup frequencies by creating a schedule and tell it to replicate either some hours or once a day. In our full product, we have some more flexible scheduling. What this will do, if I say I want to back up once an hour, this will allow you to test out what's the change rate on my virtual machines, and after the first initial replication, which is going to replicate a full, we're replicating the change blocks. So it will allow you to see how long do those incremental replications take, and is this going to work for the size of my pipe, the size of my internet connection, and the change rate of my virtual machines. So you'll be able to validate that. So I'm going to just set this to backup say, every 4 hours. And then I just come down and pick the machines I want to replicate. So I pick a few here. Now, you can pick more virtual machines to replicate, but the limitation on test drive is I can only have 2 VMs deployed at a given time. So test drive protection group, you see the thing I can do with it is replicate now, and it will take the snapshots and start the replications. If I do anything, then it'll pick up on the hourly schedule or the every 4-hour schedule that I set up, and will replicate them. And then once it's replicated, you see I have some other options here. So I'm going to switch now to another protection group that I've already previously replicated. You see I come here to this tab called Deployment. This gives you some relations of the test drive. Is it's going to let you do one deployment with 2 instances or two VMs in the cloud. So you try, if you want to try multiple VMs, you just do the ones that you have up, and then you can pick some different ones to deploy. You can pick a snapshot. This one's had multiple replications. I'm just got the latest snapshot. Click there. Test drive, it's always going to create a new VPC. If you're not familiar with that, it's you could equate it to a VLAN. It's a networking container that allows you to specify the networking subnet of your virtual machines, and to create a stack. Now, with your whole project, if you're curious about the native components, you can actually go in the AWS console and look at these CloudFormation stacks and see what they're about. But here with test drive, you're able to log into AWS and see the actual cloud instances. I pick the instances I replicated. Here in test drive, we've chosen the instance types that we're going to spin up in the cloud. With a full-fledged product, you can modify this. You can choose the instance type you want to use, and then IP address. You really need to do this for the test drive because this is the way you validate that your machines are actually working. It's really easy. Just deploy button, and it's going to the that we've replicated up there, and it will create, convert it from VMware VM to Amazon AMI with and these volume, one of these VPCs to control the networking, and with elastic IP addresses. It's really fun to show in the full-fledged project all the magic that happens underneath the covers. But you can do with this product, with the Drive product, is once I've deployed it, I can see when I deployed virtual machines. And you see I've deployed these file servers here. And I chose the elastic IP address, and here's that elastic IP address. I am going to just desktop. It's important if you have a Windows that the VM was already enabled for remote desktop before you replicate it up there, or if it's Linux, make sure it's already enabled for SH. You replicate it up there. But I'm going to connect. Check cloud IP address. And minute to log in here. So you'll notice this is the machine running in the cloud. So Amazon this as part of the deployment. So you can see here it is. There's the Amazon instance ID. It's public IP address that we came through, the private IP, which I had on my local network, and availability zone that it's deployed at. So I have a full server here. If I'm in Device Manager here, you see where the disk drives are. These have been loaded to native EBS volumes. Under the covers, Amazon's running Zen Server, so you see the disk now are these parallel virtual disk, but I can come in disk management, and I can see my volumes that are replicated over for them, and I can validate, yes, these are all I had locally. I'm now accessing them in the cloud. How cool is that? And you didn't have to do any work other than hit that deploy button. So I still get over how cool that is, but I may be a little bit biased. But anyway, that's pretty much the demo. Again, so for you're validating, is Boomerang going to work in my environment? Are the VMs going to go up there natively, and are they? Is my pipe big enough to handle the replications? Then the step would be try the product and look and see how it's deploying up there in the cloud, and we have some other webinars that talk about that. So I think that does it for the demo.
Thank you much, Keith, and outstanding as usual. We have a number of questions coming in thanks to the panelists and your demo, Keith. We're going to hold the questions for just a couple of minutes. And at the end of my presentation, we'll go ahead and address them. You have handed the screen back to me. Let me see if I can pull it up. Looks like my screen.
I'm not seeing your screen right now, Roy.
Refresh.
I'm going to refresh. Just a minute, everybody. Try it.
There it is. I can see it now.
Everybody can see the go button? I promised to give you some links to some free AWS training that we've found and we recommend to our customers. It's interesting that we did a survey recently of our fan and user base, and one of the questions most frequently asked is, where do I go to get more help and information about setting up my Amazon account? There's a number of sources that you can use. Obviously, on vmboomerang.com account, there's a whole getting started guide that we put together with AWS. He runs a tutorial with you and shows you how to set up your free account, as Keith had alluded to earlier. You go to Amazon Web Services Direct Account, and there are a whole series of instructional videos, self-learning labs, certification classes. You almost get lost in the number of different options. The URL for the AWS.com training site is up on the screen as the second bullet. We'll be sending this presentation and a recording of the slide deck out after the end of the presentation, so you don't need to be screenshotting or furiously writing all these down. It'll come your way in just a few hours. And the last site that I would point you to is a site with that very long URL address. Actually goes directly into YouTube, and there are over 50 what are called PowerShot short YouTube clips of various AWS features, applications, and approaches to setting up AWS. So it'll take you through everything as from topics as simple as how to set up your account. We'll tell you what EC2 is and S3 and elastic block storage. These are all literally 5 to maybe 10-minute YouTube videos, so they're very handy. You can consume them at your leisure. Now, we've also talked about how do I estimate what it's going to cost for me to run in the cloud. And there are a number of interesting sites to do these quick hit cost estimations as well. One that I found quite handy is a site called Cloudorado. URL, the web address up on the screen. A starting point for calculating the cost of storage, compute, and even you do some simple configurations for hosting comparisons as well. What's especially interesting about Cloudorado is they actually provide these cost estimates on over 100 different cloud providers and will compare and contrast the costs. Amazon at the URL listed on the screen also has its own detailed monthly calculator costs, and it does break costs up into the storage, the compute, the online storage that's needed along with the compute, the network, various costs. So it's a very detailed costing comparison. It has a base monthly calculator, which is interactive as well. And Google has pricing charts. They're kind of the most recent entry to the costing estimation. So they've got their pricing charts are not interactive, but it gives you a very good basic overview of the options. Just a quick word about our sponsor. The Boomerang solution is actually a wholly owned business within Unitrends. Parent company is a worldwide provider of mid-range data protection solutions, both physical, software and virtual, and cloud solutions. We have over 15,000 customers around the world. This business specifically in the data protection, backup, and disaster recovery business for over 2 decades. And have thousands of registered partners. In fact, we're a 100% channel company, so we love to work with partners. We cover an exabyte of customer data, either locally, in sites, or in various cloud locations. Free trials, and for the ability to go implement a test drive. Keith demoed just a few minutes ago. You're welcome to go to vmboomerang.com, and there are 30-day free trials, and of course, a test drive that actually was sponsored and built for us by our friends at Orbitera right there on vmboomerang.com. I'd like to open the lines up for Q&A, and we'll start with a few questions that have already come in. The first question that came in, does the 3 cents per gigabyte cost to store an AWS S3 also cover the potential cost to transfer those AMIs back into your on-premise EI environment? And that's an excellent question. The answer is no. The way that Boomerang operates is that we deploy, the Boomerang dashboard deploys your VMware VMs to S3, so incurring no EC2 costs. So it's just the 3 cents a gigabyte per month. And those of you that have been tracking Amazon, they're doing constant price reductions. They've implemented 2 tiers now in S3. Standard S3 tier at 3 cents a gig, and inactively accessed tier at 1.25 cents a gig per month. Boomerang supports the 3 cents a gig, and we're working to also support that lower cost tier in S3 as well. No, it won't cost you anything if you're just storing in S3 and restoring from S3 back into your local environment. Question that came in, do you also support tiering or archiving between S3 and Glacier? Boomerang does not support tiering from S3 to Glacier. the Glacier the way that would be, of course, to migrate your VMs in S3 over to EC2. Then you could take full advantage of all of the Amazon applications and solutions. Currently, we do the current implementation of Boomerang does not support Glacier. If you recover your AMI within AWS the virtual private cloud, is additional cost to your AWS account beyond the 3 cents per gig per month? The answer is yes. In that case, you'll actually be incurring compute, network, and electric block storage (EBS) costs, which, as you may be aware, are certainly considerably higher than just storing in S3. And the reason why we've architected Boomerang the way it is, it provides both a low-cost backup and restore directly from S3, while at the same time offering the option, should you choose to, deploying in EC2 and disaster recovery service. So the answer question is yes. When you do migrate to EC2, you will be incurring those compute and network and other storage resources. So that costs your account. Question for you: how much time will it take to migrate one VM, a Windows 2008 Release 2, 8 gig RAM, and one vCPU 50 gig drive to AWS?
I'm going to answer that like every good performance guy answers a question like that, and the answer is it depends, right? It depends on the size of your network, your internet connection, your upload speed. And the thing about this tool is just try it. I mean, you can download it, put it in your environment with this type, and you can measure it. You know, as Roy said, this is very easy to deploy, get it up there. But for most environments that would, you know, I'm gonna say it's maybe something like that, depending on the size of your pipe. Master. I'm going to touch back too on the question about the free storage costs. So if you the full version and you go into your account, you can actually go to the S3 bucket and turn on what Amazon calls lifecycle management. It will say after so many days, migrate this from S3 to the S3 infrequently accessed. Now, it does support that because the you know, we're not doing it natively from the UI, but you can absolutely go in there and set that life cycle because the infrequently accessed is the access time is exactly the same as S3. The difference, and this gets to some of the cost questions, is if it's migrated to infrequently accessed, it's a lot cheaper to store. It's down to 1.25 cents a gig a month, I believe. But then the is that you pay to access it now. So if I do a deployment, it's giving me more to read out of it to deploy it. So it's that kind of your balance, right? If I'm going to have a lot of retention up there, I want to move it to infrequently accessed, and my long-term storage cost is cheaper. But if I'm doing a lot of test deployments, then you're getting more every time you pull out of there. So those calculators that Roy pointed you to are a good resource on that. We don't support migrating it to Glacier because then the deployment, the latencies are just too long to do a deployment from Glacier. But great questions.
Great, Keith. Now I know why they call you the Senior Director of Advanced Engineering. Do we have it? One, is there any limit to the size, capacity of a VM that be migrated and backed up in S3? Keith?
we're limited by an Amazon API limitation that's 1 terabyte per DK. That is going to be lifted soon, but that's the current limitation, and you can have up to 10 disks per VM.
If I just heard what you said, you can have up to 10, close to 10 terabytes, but be carved into multiple vDisks.
That's correct. Right.
Great. And your presentation, other public clouds such as Google and Azure, will Boomerang work with these clouds as well?
We're looking at that. That's a wrap question, and I can't disclose the roadmap answers right now, but it's definitely something we're looking at.
We're just scanning the list, Keith, to see if any other questions have come in from the attendees. Bear with us. Looks like questions. Thank everyone for attending today. As I said earlier, our test drive on AWS is actually built with the help of our friends at Orbitera. Thank them for that, although you can find the test drive on both the vboomerang.com site as well as on the Amazon website proper in their test drive suite. A recorded version of the presentation later today along with the slide deck for those who are interested in accessing any of the links that I showed for costing or developing some more training with Amazon Web Services. To take your own test drive, the link when we send the recording of the presentation out, and no cost to you. As Keith was saying, you'll get free access on our AWS account for a week to upload a couple of VMs and try out your own solutions. And we need to learn what you think about the test drive after you've done so. Blessing, who will be sending out the presentations, will provide his email address. And welcome to email him back with any questions, comments, or suggestions that you may have for us to improve both Boomerang and our test drive experience. Looks like one additional question has come in under the wire, so I'll go ahead and ask it. Normally, a virtual appliance-based backup server in ESXi scale very well beyond 100 VMs due to heavy I/O incurred during backup. Suggestion, or do you have any suggestions about how to work with that?
We integrate with the VMware APIs for data protection. They're called the VADP APIs. So those are the same APIs that virtually every other company that operates with VMware uses. So it does take shots, and we do migrate from the snapshot. So if you're familiar with how your other backup products work in your environment, then Boomerang will be similar. It is taking the snapshotting. Now, another aspect to that is that our own snapshot, so we can sit side by side by other backup products. So you can test this out without worrying about it impacting the normal backups you have in your environment. So hopefully that answers the question.
Very good. Thanks, Keith. And for the last-minute question, whoever sent it in, that was terrific. As we closing the webinar, I encourage those of you on the webinar that are interested in Boomerang to visit our site, vmboomerang.com, for more information and access to both the 30-day unlimited free trial, as well as the test drive that Keith demoed earlier this afternoon. I'd like to thank everyone for their participation today, and wish you all a great Thursday and a restful and successful weekend. Thanks, everybody.